Good afternoon, ladies. This is part two in a three-part series on the forefathers and their contribution to prayer. So last week we spoke about Abraham, Avram Avinu, and we said that Avram Avinu was metaken tfilas shacharis, which means he instituted the power of morning prayer. And we explained in great detail, he didn't just institute the morning prayers, he created what we call shacharis power. Shacharis power means that every time that you and I daven a shacharis, we are actually plugging in to this power that Avram Avinu unleashed on that awesome morning that we spoke about last week, where he davened for who? Who remembers? When Avram Avinu davened for stone, right? He davened for stone. And we explained, based on the writings of Reb Tzadok HaKohen, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu said yes to the tefillos of Avram Avinu. It just took him a while. The tefillah of Avram Avinu created Lot. We spoke about this, which ultimately brings us to the Mashiach, who's going to fix and correct all the storms of the world. That was last week's class. So today, we're going to look at the tefillah of Yitzchak Avinu. And I wish it was Parshas Chayesara. That would be beautiful, but it's not, which is we missed that. But at the end of Chayesara, we're introduced to the tefillah of Mincha. And I would like to add that Yitzchak Avinu, as we've said many, many times, when he unleashed the power of Mincha, he was actually unleashing his own essence. This is an opportunity for us to do two things. One is to understand Mincha, but much more than that, it gives us a chance to understand a little bit about Yitzchak Avinu. Because, and here I'm being nice over here, if you look at the story of Yitzchak Avinu, purely from the viewpoint of Hollywood, in other words, if you read the story of Yitzchak Avinu, without Chazal, without the rabbis, without them opening our eyes to anything deeper, if you just read the narrative, if we're going to turn Rivka Amenu into like a Disney princess, so it's just not going to work, because Yitzchak Avinu, his story is incredibly boring. Who here can tell me anything that Yitzchak does on his own? Not when he's, so to speak, in the background to the battles of Yaakov and Esav. Somewhere where he is doing something, not where he's in the background with the Akedah of Avram Avinu. Okay, besides obviously his prayers, where do we find a chapter? I'll give you a clue. It was in last week's parsha. A Yitzchak Avinu chapter where he was doing something on his own, having an adventure. It's Yitzchak Avinu's story. What was he doing? Okay, so the answer is perfect. The answer is Yitzchak Avinu is the one that digs wells. That is beautiful. There's a whole story in last week's parsha where Yitzchak Avinu becomes the world's most famous well digger. Not exactly Hollywood blockbuster material. I can't really see it, you know what I mean? Isaac, well digger. Damn. It's not going to happen. So keep this in the back of your mind. Apparently, the only really interesting story about Yitzchak Avinu is that he digs wells. What on earth does this mean for us? What can we get out of it? Is it connected to Mincha? We need to explore this a little bit deeper. Just out of interest, I have at home a siddur for teenagers written by the conservative movement, and they go through the 19 morning blessings, the 19 blessings of the Shemona Esrei, and they try and rewrite it in the language that teens will get into it. So the first blessing is called Avos. Avos, which means forefathers. So you see a little picture of Avram Avinu, and next it says, welcome to Abe. And it says, Abe, he changed the world. He discovered God. He spread it around to the four corners of the world. He had adventures. He had wars, etc., etc. Then with Yaakov, you see him lying on his back. It says Yaakov was the dreamer, and he went on to build the Jewish people, and he had 12 sons, and he was dealing with his brother, and so on and so forth. When it comes to Ike, so you have Abe, Ike, and Jake. When it comes to Ike, it says the following words, quote, Ike didn't do much on his own, but did a great job of taking daddy's ideas and passing it down to his children. Bottom line, Ike is basically boring. Ike is basically a failure as an Av. If you read it purely on a superficial level, it's hard to understand what are we supposed to get into. What is Yitzchak all about? And what's his tefillas Mincha all about? Mincha is the shortest prayer. It's like we said 3 weeks ago, it's like a booster shot in the afternoon. what exactly are we supposed to be thinking before we say our afternoon prayers? So, is everyone with me and everyone agrees that this is something that needs to be answered? For all of you who are just joining us, can we just agree on the following statement? I want to get to know about Yitzchak Avinu. Yitzchak Avinu is one of the forefathers. He is by far the least exciting. The only thing he actually does in terms of adventures is the story of him digging wells. What's going on behind the scenes? So to do that, we're actually going to look at the mincha that he davened and go, as my good friend Rabbi Tatz would say, a little bit deeper. So can we do that? Are we ready? Let's do this. Let me read to you. I'm reading you from the very end of Parshas Chayesara, Genesis 24, verse 63. Vayetze Yitzchak, Yitzchak goes out, lasuach basare. Lasuach basare. Rashi brings down here in the pasuk, the Gemara in Brachos Kavav and base that says, Ein sicha ela tefillah. When Yitzchak talks, he's talking prayer. Now, who can do this? Where was the Sada? Who can guess? Where was the Sada? Where was the field? I'll give you a clue. The Gemara in Pesachim brings down, Avram called it a mountain, Yaakov called it a house, Yitzchak calls it a field. Where was the field? What, strawberry field? No. What? Har Maria. Thank you very much. Okay, it was Har Maria in exactly the same way that Avram davens the first shacharis in the Makom, which we said he called it a har, Yitzchak called it a field, Yaakov in this week's parasha calls it a bayis. That's why he davens Mariv. The idea of a mountain turning into a field, turning into a house, is clearly each adds a new level of spirituality. A mountain is something that sticks out from the ground. A field is something you can already plant something alive, and a house is already protected from the outside, so you can nurture the spirituality from within. Those are the three forefathers. Each one gave it a different name, and each one added a new prayer. Yitzchak gave us mincha. Once again, Vayetze Yitzchak lasuach basara. He went out to pray in the field. And then the two words, lifnos erev, which we explained, is as the sun is setting. The sun is going down. Late afternoon, Yitzchak is davening mincha. So what's happening behind the scenes? I'm going to show you something incredible. Unlike Yaakov's Mariv, and unlike Avram Avinu's Shacharis, we actually have a verse, a pasuk, that comes before Yitzchak's mincha, that gives us a little bit of an inside scoop about what's going on. How did Yitzchak prepare for his prayer? What's going on behind the scenes? This is what the Torah says, and I quote, V'Yitzchak ba, Yitzchak came, mibo be'er l'chai roi, from a place called, quote, be'er l'chai roi, literally means a well where God watches me. V'hu yoshei be'eretz haNegev, but he actually lives in the land of the Negev, in the deep south. He lives in Louisiana. That's where he's from. V'hu yoshei be'eretz haNegev. Says the Ramban, Nachmanides, what was Yitzchak doing in Be'er l'chai roi? V'yitaken, says the Ramban, it's possible. Sheyitzchak holech tamid el hamakom. He frequented this place on a regular basis. Ki hiloi makom tefillah. This is where he used to daven. Bavur harosham hamalach, because that's where the angel appeared. So he used to go to Be'er l'chai roi on a regular basis to pray. Why? Because that's where the angel appeared. Senoritas, I have a question. Where the angel appeared to who?
In a dream.
To Yitzchak?
To Yaakov, no.
You gotta get your forefathers right.
I'm sorry.
That's where the angel appeared in Be'er l'chai roi. Where are our Chumash experts? Where are our Chumash experts? Yes! It's where it appeared to Hagar. Thank you very much. That was beautifully said. Hagar had an event in Be'er l'chai roi, which we're going to study in a moment. And there, an angel appeared to her. So, we're going to read this event in a moment to understand exactly what happened. But apparently, the angel appears to Hagar, and apparently Yitzchak says, you know what? I'm going to make this my place of prayer. I'm going to start davening right here. So this opens up a bunch of questions. Firstly, why would Yitzchak want to pray in a place where Hagar had miracles? And secondly, why would Yitzchak Avinu go to the place that he regularly prays so that he can prepare for Mincha? In other words, if the Ramban is right, we've got a double puzzle. First of all, Yitzchak says, today is the day where I unleash the power of Mincha. Today I'm going to daven this Mincha, that every Mincha until the end of time is going to find its spiritual source and nourishment from this Mincha. But first, I'm going to Be'er L'Chai Roi. Why? Because that's where a miracle happened to Hagar. Who's Hagar? The mother of Ishmael. When I was a kid, this is a long, long time ago, my sister and I, after 1967, so after the 6-Day War, we used to play this game. I spent a lot of time in Israel. That my sister and I, we used to go on Arab buses and randomly go to different cities and have adventures. It's a funny thing, when you say this today, people think, Rabbeinu are local. What is his problem? But we used to go into Nablus and to Jenin, all these places. So I had this vision as a child of seeing these women, these big Arab women with huge, big sacks of flour on their heads. And I figured that's what Hagar looks like, right? That's how you picture it? So I want to ask you a question. What's Hagar got to do with Yitzchak, except for the small, teeny, weeny little coincidence that Yitzchak is Gematria Hagar? Same numerical value, 208. It's getting creepy. There's something going on with Hagar and Yitzchak. Well, guess what? This is the story, ladies. Yitzchak Avinu and Hagar, there's got to be some kind of an intimate connection. There's got to be something going on over here. What is happening? What is happening behind the scenes? So let's go back to Parshas Lech Lecha, and let's go back and relearn the story of Hagar and try and understand a little bit what it's got to do with Yitzchak and how it's got to do with Mincha and how everything's going to connect. And ladies, we're in for a little bit of a ride. So I want to tell you a story. Once upon a time, a long, long time ago, in a faraway land, when nights were bold and ogres lived in swamps, there was once a beautiful princess. She was so beautiful that all the girls in the land would look at her and say, wow, I want to be like that princess. And all the young men wished and dreamed that maybe they could have her hand in marriage. And she was famous for being famous. Everything she did, everyone copied. If she would change her line of clothing, so would everyone else. She was on the front cover of every magazine. She even owned a store in Los Angeles. She tried her hardest to watch what her sisters were doing, but she couldn't control them, and she herself would have crazy things happening. She even had her house stolen once. But you know what? Didn't make any difference, because she was just famous for being famous. She could open up a line of perfume. She could... It's just a joke. I'm making fun of the Kardashians, and no one's getting it. Thank you. Okay, just relax, everyone. It's just a joke. But now comes my twist. Our little princess over here, our beautiful, famous, incredibly amazing, everywhere you go, every breath you take, they'll be watching you, princess. It's a little secret. And no one knew that she had a brain. Oh my gosh, she had a brain. And she didn't know what to do with it, because she's busy thinking, and she's looking around, and she's trying to figure things out. And one day, she says, enough is enough. I'm going to Daddy. And she storms into Pharaoh's palace, and she says, I would like to speak with my father. She comes in, and Pharaoh looks at her and says, Hagar, what can I do for you? She says, Father, I'm not content. He says, so what's the big deal? I'll buy you. You want me to open up another chain of clothing? Would you like to make your own reality show? What can I do for you? You know what I mean? Would you like just, travel, more romance? You name it, I can do it. I'm Pharaoh. So Hagar says, no. He says, Father, I'm looking for something spiritual. He says, what do you mean? He says, there's got to be more to life than just being famous and just glory and beautiful clothing and having 500 pairs of shoes and everyone just following you and just being so glamorous and pretty. There's got to be more out there. So Pharaoh starts shaking. He's very nervous. He tells everyone to leave. And he's alone with his daughter and says, look, my dear daughter, I'm Pharaoh. I'm not exactly a spiritual person. I'm actually the extreme opposite. You know that. I'm not exactly appropriate. But I want to tell you something. A few years ago, I had an encounter with this incredible woman. And this woman, there was something about her that she was the most beautiful woman that the world had ever seen. But whenever you looked at her, you were instantly inspired. And you wanted to do good things. And this made me very uncomfortable because I'm Pharaoh. You just look at her and you just feel, spiritually energized. And you want to do acts of kindness and all other things that just go against my nature. Well, her God took care of her and took care of me in a bad way. We had to get rid of her. But you know what? She still haunts me. She was so beautiful, and yet at the same time, the most elevating, most spiritually incredible person that I've ever met. You know what, Hagar, if you want to find spirituality, you're going to have to find this woman. The next day, the biggest scandal since Where's Waldo? Hagar disappears. No one knows where she is. Everyone's looking for her. Meanwhile, she gets like a haircut. She redoes her wardrobe, and she closes her top button, and she knocks on the door of a seminary called B'nai Sarah. Thank you for getting that joke. Okay. And Sarah Main opens the door and says, who are you? And she goes, I'm Hagar, the daughter of Pharaoh. And Sarah says, are you kidding me? Is this some kind of am I a candid camera? Some kind of a joke? He says, no. He says, I'm searching for spirituality. I'm looking for ruchnius. The Sarah Main is looking at this woman, and she sees that she's sincere. This is really weird. I'll tell you a little secret. Don't tell Rabbi Lifta I told you this. But here in the Vay, every so often we like to do what's called an experimental girl. You know what I mean? Like a girl that so obviously will not make it in the Vay. But you know what? You never know. Miracles have happened. So you're taking someone that's a little bit like, Oscar Wilde. Experiment. Let's see what happens. Sarah means, you know what? We'll give you a trial run. Brings her in. You can learn with whoever you want. We'll fast track you. We'll give you Eliezer's daughter, as a chavrusa. And we'll see what happens. We'll go with the flow. Before Sarah knows it, Hagar, determined as she is, goes from the bottom of the bottom and climbs herself up until before Sarah knows it, she has now become the prime student. In all of her seminary, everyone's in awe. And Sarah Mena is in love with Hagar. And everyone realizes that Hagar has got some kind of magic with her. And one day, Sarah calls in Hagar. Now I'm going to make a statement before I say what I'm about to say. In 2016, I'm about to say sounds incredibly wrong. I actually have a class, which I cannot give now just because of the clock, to explain this in terms of the context of the times so it doesn't weird people. But having said that, this is how the story unfolds. Sarah says to Hagar, says, look, I've been watching you and I'm just impressed. I mean, you are my closest student. I trust you 100%. You're like the closest thing I've ever had to a real student, and I want to honor you. I want you to be, and warning this is awkward, my husband's concubine. So, just to get it in perspective, so you can understand it doesn't sound completely off. In this week's parasha, we have Bilhah and Zilpah. Bilhah and Zilpah become the mothers of Shvatim, the mothers of tribes. How do they do it? Each one became a student of Rachel and Leah to the point that they came on a spiritual level extensions of their teachers. Extensions of their teachers. They became like an extension to the extent that when they gave birth, it was as if that their patrons had given birth, and it was very real. So we only have, 4 matriarchs. We don't have 6 of them, because Bilhah and Zilpah don't disappear. Bilhah and Zilpah are an extension of Rachel and Leah. Well, guess what? Hagar had the potential to be like that with Sarah. And before she knows it, Hagar is pregnant from Avraham Avinu. And something terrible happens. She starts to get funny thoughts. She thinks to herself, sorry, Menu, she never got pregnant from Avraham Avinu. Look at me, straight away. Maybe, at a certain level, I've even become greater than Sarah Imenu. At that point then, she crossed a red line, and she lost it. And Sarah Imenu thinks this through, and she realizes that the only way that Hagar can learn a lesson is if she is cut off from the source of her spiritual nourishment. And poor Hagar goes down in history as the first girl ever to be kicked out of seminary. So I want to make a little personal injection over here. I just want to cut into the story just for a moment. Hagar is about to go through a downward spiral. The Torah says she finds herself in a midbar, in a wilderness. Well, guess what, ladies? A midbar can have many meanings. It could be a double entendre. It could mean that she goes to the bottom of the bottom, the furthest from the spiritual power of Avram and Sarah's house, and now she finds herself in town, in the Russian compound, drinking beer with the boys. And then before she knows it, she's in Crack Square, and oh my gosh, okay, that's it. She's hit rock bottom. That's the midbar. I'm glad that no one knows what Crack Square is. Okay, Baruch Hashem. Let it stay that way. And that's it. And she's hanging out with all the rejects and all the nobodies and all the other people that the system has spat out. I want to make a little point over here, and I want to say this from the bottom of my heart. This is, ladies and gentlemen, this is a Menachem Nissel interjection, something I feel very passionate about. If you're ever part of a chevra, you're part of a group, and someone gets kicked out, you have an obligation to do everything you can to make sure she doesn't fall further. Because you know what? When you get kicked out of the system, so you start to get funny thoughts, and you think, you know what? Maybe I'm a bad person. Maybe I'm addicted to bad choices. Then it becomes self-fulfilling. And meanwhile, the people that kick you out says, look, I told you she was a rotten apple. But if someone would have picked her up and says, no, you're a great person. You just made a few mistakes, but you can always fix it and get yourself back in. And that we love you and we think you're great and we see the goodness inside of you. You can really, literally save people's lives. I'm saying this to you because again and again and again, I see this not really in the Vay circles, but some of the places that I teach, and I see a girl get kicked out. She normally deserves it. She really did something stupid, but she's not a bad person. She made a bad choice. And you have to go out there, do everything you can to try and help her and try and get her, tell her that we love you and tell her that we think you're great, and you know what I mean? And just focus on the positive and try and rebuild her esteem both physically and spiritually. Well, look what happens to Hagar. Hagar has reached the bottom of the bottom of the bottom. Hagar's in the midbar, and there she is, she's floundering. And then, just like a country song, I saw an angel from heaven. Boom, an angel appears. If you remember the story, there were 3 angels. Each one comes along and says their own little addition, revealing to Hagar she should go back to her mistress. She should apologize, ask for a second chance. She should change her ways. And then one of them says, guess what? You're pregnant, but you're not just pregnant. You're pregnant with a little boy. His name's going to be called Ishmael. He's going to have a huge, big nation, and he's going to be a pain in a certain part of the anatomy of the rest of humanity until the end of days. And Hagar goes, that's so beautiful. And thanks for sharing. And that's it. And then Hagar says the most inspiring words ever. And I want to read to you what she says. Vatikra Shem Hashem. This is Parshas Lech Lecha, Perek Tezayin, Pasuk Yud Gimel. Vatikra Shem Hashem, Hadover Eleh. She turns to Kodesh Baruch Hu, and she cries out a prayer. Ata Kilroi. You are a God that watches out for me. Ki Amra Hagam Haloim, Ra'isi Achiri Roi. Rashi says, Svura Yisi, Asha'af Along Bim Nibarias, Re'isi Shtucha Shel Makam, which means Hagar discovers for the first time in history something new about God, something incredible about Hashem. Hagar realizes that until now, where can you find Hagar? Where can you find God? In the house of Abram and Sarah. It's where the angels hang out. Wherever there's spirituality, that's where you find God. But in a midbar, at the bottom of the bottom of the bottom, to find the Kadosh Baruch Hu there as well, how can that be? I know there are girls in this room. You're gay, you're an FIU, and you're hanging out there, you know what I mean? And the girl next to you is, she's playing with a belly button ring and telling you about what she did with her boyfriend. And you're thinking to yourself, beam me up, Scotty, take me back to Neve. Hashem cannot possibly be here. Hashem cannot possibly be in some faraway university in South Florida. Well, you're wrong. You're wrong. Hashem's there as well. Gam ki elech begeit salmavis. Lo yirara ki ata imari. Doesn't matter where you've fallen. You could be in the shadow of death. Because Baruch Hu's there with you, holding your hand, rooting for you. Your big cheerleader up in heaven. Because Baruch Hu never gives up on anybody. The holy words of the Baal Shem Tov, HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves the biggest Rasha more than you can ever love the biggest tzaddik. Shem never gives up. Hashem is always there for you. Well, guess who discovers this? Who's the first person to discover this? Hagar. Hagar, the mother of Ishmael, she is the one that discovers the power of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's infinite love for people who are the rejects of society, the ones that are looked down, the ones that go to the shadchan, and the shadchan says, oh, that's your family? Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, let's look at your grades. Oh, that's not good. Okay, let's see how you look. Okay, it's another 3 out of 10. And, let's see who we can find you. And she looks, the bottom of the list of boys and says, that's not what Hashem sees in you. Hashem loves you and sees your greatness no matter how much you've fallen. He's always there for you. This revelation does not go unnoticed by a man who has spent his whole life focusing on how HaKadosh Baruch Hu is there for people in a wilderness. Once upon a time, there was a man. And he was very different from his father. His father spent his whole life showing people that God exists in every corner of the universe. Once upon a time, there was a man whose father discovered God, what the rabbis call the Olam Malay, the big universe. And whenever he would travel, he would show people Hashem is here, Hashem is there, Hashem is absolutely everywhere. Up, up, down, down. That's where he can be found. But his son took a different approach. And I want to say these words very carefully. His son took a different approach, an opposite approach, but equally important. Because every human being is also a universe. Every human being, and here I'm quoting from the Medrash that brings down that just like the big universe has a heaven and earth, we have spirituality and we have physicality. And just like the big universe has oceans and deserts, and it has mountains and valleys, and it has cities and it has fields. If you look inside a human being, the Olam Katan, we are equally complex and equally deep and equally powerful. Actually, no person in this room has a clue about who that person is in the mirror. You know much more than anybody else. I could give you a piece of paper, and you could write a 500-page book about yourself. But you haven't scratched the surface of who you are. Not even begun. I'll give you a little clue. I once had hypnosis done on me. It was the craziest thing. The guy was amazing. He got me to tell over stories from when I was a little child. I can't be looking at the clock over here. I would love to show you the stories. They're interesting. But he told me that with hypnosis, he can get out stories from all the way from the moment of birth. And he told me he's heard of people that can tell stuff from previous Gilgulim. So I'm not going to talk about this now. But Judaism believes in reincarnation. Reincarnation is not an Eastern concept. It's very central to Judaism. We don't speak about it a lot, and it's hugely irrelevant. It's a very irrelevant concept to know that you once existed. Reincarnation means that you were here before. Your body and your soul was here before. And you've come to add another chapter to your story. How that works is not for now. How that works is really not for now. But all of that is who you are. And deep down in your spiritual subconscious is your history. And your history going back and further back, all the way back to your very first Gilgul. You know what? I'll tell you something else. Every single one of us started off as basically a fertilized ovum with a neshama attached. Inside that fertilized ovum is our parents and their experiences as well. There's a reason why people say, you got your daddy's looks and your mama's temper. That's the way it goes. Well, you also have your spiritual side of you that comes from your parents. It's not by chance. We talk about yichus, where you come from, what it's all about. It's deep down inside of you. And as I always like to say, in the same way that every person in this room, or if you're like me, which I think you all are, you love food, and you could go to a restaurant and you could see, in the way I've been taught, you can go to a fancy restaurant and on your plate, there could be 50 countries represented. If you include all the spices and all the different things where things come from. Hundreds of people have handled it. I don't want this to put you off. That glorious moment when you take, your human mandibles and you say, "Come to Papa," and you just crush into that animal. And that's it. And then what? You forget about it. And you say to yourself, I don't want to think about what happens after the swallow. I know from my biology classes it's being turned into vomit, but I do not want to think about that at all. Somewhere deep in your psyche, you are aware that the proteins are being sent to your brain and the carbs to your hips. And all these things are things we do not want to think about. But I'll tell you a little secret. The journey of that piece of meat that was once dancing in the pampas in Argentina and is now inside of you, that animal has just begun its journey because it's going to stay with you forever. Well, you see in the mirror, once you were a little girl, now you're Leonara. What's the difference? The answer is cows. Not just cows, wheat fields and orchards and all kinds of things. Did you hear that it's possible that a human being could be a microcosm of the infinite world? The Olam Katan and the Olam Malay. So one Av discovers God in the Olam Malay. And the other Av discovers God in the Olam Katan. And guess what? It's not a pretty sight. You know what he sees? He sees that our bodies are a midbar. There's a wilderness. What do you mean it's a wilderness? Again, I don't mean to be rude. Yeah, I'm being rude. How many hours of YouTube surfing? How many hours of just, scrolling through Instagram? And all that stays inside of you. How many hours and hours of wasted times looking at, the latest Menachem challenge. How many times can you look at these things? Why? They're stupid, yes. In a couple of weeks, everyone's going to say, what were we thinking? Like with the ice bucket challenge. Things come and go. It's inside of us. Well, once upon a time, there was a man who said, I'm going to show every Jew, no matter how much muck and garbage he has put inside to his system, I will go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper until payday, I find water. I find spiritual nourishment. Let me translate this to you in the language of this class. This Av, what he does, he digs wells. Get it? He digs wells. This Av is the blind Av. Why is he the blind Av? Because the person who is blind turns his eyes round 180 degrees, and he can see much more than anyone else. No one saw as much as Yitzchak Avinu. Yitzchak, the word Yitzchak means Kates at the end. Chai, he brings everything back to life. He goes further and deeper into every single human being until he finds that little spark. And he can turn it all round. Everything he turns round. Yitzchak, in his merit, we get the wall to come. When the wall hits rock bottom, he turns it round. Yitzchak comes from the word tzchok, the laughter at the end of days. The blind Av sees infinitely more than everyone else, because he sees deep down inside of us what everyone else has given up. He goes a little further and he finds that little spark of goodness. And now we understand why Yitzchak is so interested in Hagar. And why Yitzchak is gematria Hagar. Because Hagar, in real life, discovers this. Hagar is that woman that hit rock bottom. Hagar is the one that went from the highest of the highest, Sarah's top student, to being right at the bottom in the midbar. And she found God. But now comes the difference. Because Yitzchak Avinu says, I am going to make that place where Hagar had her revelation my place of prayer. That's where I belong. Because that's where I created my own challenge in life. To find spirituality in every single part of the human body. So he goes Be'er L'chai Roi. But then he says, when I'm going to release the power of Mincha, I'm going to do something that Hagar can never do. Hagar stays in the midbar. And Hagar to this very day has stayed in the midbar. Ishmael has the power of prayer, which we'll talk about another day. But his prayers are from the midbar. We take those prayers and we bring them to the Sadeh, to the field, to Har Maria, and we raise it to the highest possible level. We turn that tefillah of Hagar and we raise it to something different. We raise it to the power of Mincha. And now we've come full circle. Because now we can go and understand what it means that what Yitzchak gave us the gift of Mincha. I mentioned to you 2 weeks ago, every day, just like every person is a microcosm of the universe, every day is a microcosm of time. And every day is a sunrise and a sunset. When the sun rises, we're filled with hope, we're filled with dreams. Today's going to be the day. Today I'm going to clean my room. It's going to happen. Or whatever you decide to do. Today's the day when I'm going to squeeze the most out of my classes. Today's the day when I'm going to finally start taking care of my health. All these beautiful plans in the morning. And the day goes on. And the day starts to get ugly and thick. And the air starts to become heavy. And the sun starts to set. And everything we dreamed of is just not going the way we wanted it to be. We need a special Av. We need a blind Av who can see deep down inside of us and show us the ability to turn everything round to that place where it began, the prayer of Abraham at the crack of dawn. So Yitzchak Avinu shows us with his gevura how to turn everything round. In other words, in real life, you go through your day and you see the sun is setting. So then you plug into the shoes of Yitzchak Avinu and you say to yourself, this is my time to reassess my goals. To ask myself, what can I reconnect to? What is lost? What can I still fix? To reassess your faith that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is still with you. It's a booster shot. As I mentioned, those of you that go in the real world, you go to the businesses, you go to the city, you go to Manhattan, or central London. When I was at university, I used to remember this. You go, these people, they rush off in the middle of their workday, and they go to the side room, and they daven mincha, and they get that booster shot, and then they go back to work. So beautiful to see that. But now I want to add one more thing. And with this I really come to a close. Because not every girl in this room davens mincha. Even though you should, if you're Ashkenazi, you should daven shachris and mincha. Sephardi girls can daven once a day, you're good to go. But shachris and mincha, I'm sorry, Morgan, that's what you have to do. Kachazeh. You're Sephardi? Okay. Power to you, sister. But if you're davening a mincha, remember it's also a metaphor. Because we go through minchas of our lives. Everyone has a little bit of hagar inside of them. Everyone has those moments when the sun is setting. Everyone has a moment when they feel that they need to turn things around. I'll tell you a little secret about Yitzchak Avinu. You think Yitzchak Avinu davened that mincha for no reason? He also had something that was setting inside of him. His mazel didn't work out. He was 40 years old and he was still single. It's hard. An old man. What's going to be with you? Well, guess what? He davens for a zivug. I'm not explaining myself, but every zivug is a kriyas yamsuf, is turning around your muzzle. It's splitting a sea. You're going this way and you turn, you do a U-turn. That's every shidduch. That's why I always tell ladies, in the mornings you daven for chesed, you daven for the sick people in your list. In the afternoons you daven for the girls that need shidduchim. You can do both, but that's the way it should be. Yitzchak turns round and he sees camel. And on the camel is a little 3-year-old girl. It's Rivka Imenu. Hashem has answered him straight away with a big, resounding da. Hashem says yes. Hashem gives him a shidduch straight away. He answers instantly. But what I'm sharing with you is that Yitzchak Avinu reminds us of this incredible concept through his mincha. The sun is setting on our lives. Kadosh Baruch Hu is just as close as he was when the sun is rising. And Yitzchak takes us through that dirt and the muck, and he digs those wells deeper and deeper, and he finds that spark, and with that spark he can build. And with that spark he can rebuild, and he can bring you back to your full potential and everything that you're supposed to do. Eliyahu Navi, as you all know, when the Jewish people were running after the gods of Baal, the fake gods, so he turned everything around at mincha. And we need desperately to be mincha daveners. And we need desperately that Yitzchak Avinu should once again step forward and bring out the power of Yitzchak, the power of laughter, with the coming of the final Geula, Imher of Yameinu, Amen. Thank you so much, all for listening.